The restaurant fell completely silent the moment the elegant silver-haired woman stepped through the front door. Forks stopped halfway to mouths, conversations faded into whispers, and every employee straightened their uniform with nervous hands. Everyone in Charleston, South Carolina, knew who Margaret Whitmore was. She wasn't famous because she owned businesses or appeared on television. She was feared because she was the mother of billionaire investor Christopher Whitmore, and her sharp tongue had destroyed countless careers with a single complaint. Managers trembled whenever her luxury car appeared outside. But on one unforgettable afternoon, the only person who refused to fear her was an ordinary waitress whose quiet courage would change two broken lives forever. Before we continue, if you believe kindness is stronger than power and that everyone deserves a second chance, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who believes in compassion, comment where you're watching from, and subscribe to the channel for more emotional stories that restore faith in humanity. Sophia Carter had never expected life to become so difficult. At 27 years old, she worked double shifts at Harborview Restaurant while caring for her father, Thomas, who was slowly losing his memory because of Alzheimer's disease. Every dollar she earned disappeared into hospital bills, medications, rent, and groceries. She rarely slept more than 5 hours each night, yet she arrived at work every morning wearing the same warm smile because she believed that no customer should carry the weight of her personal struggles. Many co-workers admired her strength, but very few knew how often she cried alone in her aging car before driving home. When the restaurant manager whispered that Margaret Whitmore had just arrived without a reservation, panic spread through the dining room. Everyone remembered stories about employees fired after serving her imperfect meals. She expected perfection, and she believed respect had to be earned through status rather than character. Some said she had become cold after losing her husband years earlier. Others believed wealth had simply built invisible walls around her heart. Margaret entered with graceful confidence, dressed in an expensive cream-colored suit and wearing pearls that reflected the afternoon sunlight. She sat near the window without acknowledging anyone. The manager desperately searched for someone willing to serve her table. Every experienced server quietly stepped backward, pretending to be busy. Only Sophia remained standing. She accepted the assignment with a calm smile. The first few minutes went smoothly until the kitchen accidentally delayed Margaret's meal because another customer experienced a medical emergency that required immediate attention from several staff members. Although the delay lasted only a few minutes, Margaret's patience disappeared. Her voice rose loudly enough for nearly every guest to hear. She criticized the restaurant's professionalism, questioned the competence of the staff, and accused Sophia of wasting her valuable time. Other diners lowered their eyes, unwilling to become involved. Sophia listened respectfully without interrupting, apologizing sincerely, even though the situation had not been her fault. Inside, however, her heart was breaking. She had endured difficult customers before, but something about Margaret's words reminded her of every painful moment when people had judged her without knowing the battles she fought outside these walls. Still, she refused to answer with anger. She believed dignity could never be protected by humiliation. When the meal finally arrived, Margaret barely touched it. Instead, she continued pointing out tiny imperfections that nobody else could even notice. The restaurant manager prepared himself for another damaging review that could threaten local business. Then something unexpected happened. As Sophia quietly cleared away an untouched plate, she noticed a small photograph that had slipped from Margaret's designer handbag onto the floor. Without thinking, she gently picked it up before anyone stepped on it. The picture showed a much younger Margaret standing beside a smiling little boy holding a toy sailboat. Sophia stared for only a second before carefully returning it. In that brief glance, she recognized something she hadn't expected. Loneliness, not power. Not pride, loneliness. For the first time all afternoon, Sophia looked beyond the wealthy woman sitting before her and saw someone carrying invisible pain just like everyone else. Instead of defending herself, Sophia softly placed the photograph on the table and quietly mentioned that the little boy looked incredibly happy. Her words carried no sarcasm, no fear, and no resentment. They simply acknowledged a beautiful memory. Margaret's expression changed. The anger that had filled her face suddenly disappeared, replaced by something fragile. She slowly picked up the photograph with trembling fingers. It had been taken over 30 years earlier. Christopher had been 8 years old. His father had still been alive. Their family had laughed together before endless business meetings, public attention, and unimaginable wealth gradually replaced ordinary happiness. For several long moments, Margaret remained completely silent. The entire restaurant watched in confusion. Nobody had ever seen the powerful woman speechless. Sophia quietly returned to serving other customers without expecting thanks. Several minutes later, Margaret asked the manager to invite the waitress back to her table. This time, her voice sounded entirely different. She admitted that she had spent years believing respect could only be demanded through authority. Losing her husband had convinced her that showing kindness made people weak. As Christopher built his financial empire, she surrounded herself with luxury while unknowingly pushing away nearly everyone who genuinely cared about her. Expensive homes became quieter each year. Celebrations became shorter. Conversations became colder. Wealth had purchased comfort, but never peace. Looking at that forgotten photograph reminded her of the woman she used to be before grief hardened her heart. Sophia simply listened. She never mentioned her own struggles until Margaret noticed the exhaustion in the young waitress's eyes. Eventually, the truth emerged about Thomas's illness, the endless hospital visits, and the overwhelming responsibility of caring for a father who no longer remembered many precious family memories. Margaret lowered her head. For the first time in many years, someone had answered her cruelty with compassion instead of fear. That realization hurt more deeply than any criticism ever could. The following week, Harborview Restaurant received unexpected visitors. Christopher Whitmore himself entered quietly with his mother. Instead of making headlines, they asked to speak privately with Sophia and the restaurant manager. Margaret publicly apologized to every employee she had insulted over the years. She explained that no amount of influence gave anyone permission to forget another person's humanity. Christopher listened with visible emotion because he had spent years trying unsuccessfully to help his mother heal from the loneliness she never admitted existed. Without seeking publicity, the Whitmore family quietly arranged specialized medical support for Thomas through a respected memory care foundation. They also established an employee assistance fund that helped restaurant workers facing family emergencies throughout Charleston. Sophia accepted the help with gratitude, but continued working at Harborview. She believed serving people honestly remained an honorable profession, and she wanted every guest to feel welcomed regardless of appearance or social status. Months later, regular customers noticed something remarkable. Margaret still visited the restaurant, but instead of arriving with fear surrounding her, she entered carrying fresh flowers for the staff, greeted every employee by name, and often paid anonymously for meals belonging to struggling families dining nearby. The woman everyone had feared slowly became someone people genuinely respected. Not because she possessed billions, but because she finally discovered humility. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope today, subscribe to support more uplifting stories, and let us know your thoughts below. Your support allows these messages of kindness to reach more people around the world. Before the ending, please leave a comment with one word, kindness, if you believe compassion can change even the hardest heart. Years later, Sophia often reflected that she had never defeated Margaret with clever words or public embarrassment. She had simply chosen compassion at the exact moment when anger would have been easier. Sometimes the strongest voice in a room is not the loudest one. Sometimes true courage appears as quiet patience, gentle understanding, and the willingness to see pain hidden behind pride. On that ordinary afternoon in a restaurant in the United States, a waitress did not silence the billionaire's mother by arguing with her. She silenced years of bitterness by reminding one lonely woman of the loving person she had almost forgotten she once was. And in doing so, she proved that kindness will always speak louder than fear.